In this lesson, we are going to talk about intervals. What an interval is a distance between two notes, all right? So it is specifying the distance between two notes. So intervals are identified by both distance and quality, all right? The distance is the number of letters in between the first pitch and the second pitch, okay? So if you're going from C to E, you would go C, D, E. The distance is 3 letter names away. That means that the distance between C and E is 3, which means that between C and E is a third, okay? So say you're going from G to D. G, A, B, C, D. So it is 5 letters away, 5 notes away, and therefore the distance between G to D is a fifth. So that is the interval of a fifth, okay? So you can sort of see here on this keyboard that they show you the distance. So from C to D is a second. From C to E is a third. From C to F is a fourth. C to G is a fifth. C to A is a sixth. C to B is a seventh. And then when you go from C to the upper C, we don't call that an eighth. We call that an octave. All right? So that's how you can delineate the distance, the number of the interval. Now, identifying the size of the interval on the staff can be memorized by visual distance. All right? So if you look at this, a second is always going to be represented on the staff by 2 notes that are right squished next to each other. Okay, you can see either one note is on a space, the next note is on the next line, or one note is on a line, the next note is on the next space. Okay, a third is always skipping a line or a space. So you can see a third goes from one space to the very next space, skipping the line in between, or one line to the very next line, skipping the space in between. A fourth goes from a space to a line that is 2 lines away, or a line to a space that is 2 spaces away. Okay? A fifth is going from a space, skip a space, go to the next space, or a line, skip a line, going to the next line. A sixth goes from a space to a line, skipping 3 lines, or a line to a space, skipping 3 spaces. A seventh goes from a space to a space, skipping 3 spaces, or a line to a line, skipping 3 lines. And then an octave is always going to go from a space to a line or a line to a space, skipping 4 lines or 4 spaces. All right? So the thing is that what you want to do is you want to become familiar with the way these intervals look. Because if you become familiar with the way that they look, you can instantly identify them without having to count out or figure out what is supposed to be done. All right? So that is the distance of an interval. Now, the quality of the interval is the way the interval sounds. Okay? And so the quality of the interval is determined by the number of half steps in between 2 notes. All right? The quality of the interval is notated as major, minor, perfect, augmented, or diminished. So the thing is that, so I can have a third, all right? So say I have a third that is going from one note that's on a line to the next note that's on a line. That's a third, okay? However, that third can have different qualities. It can be a major third, it can be a minor third, it can be an augmented third. It can be a diminished third. Okay? So the quality changes the way that it sounds. It is a third because of how it looks on the staff. All right? So here is a little chart that tells you about the number of half steps and whole steps. Now, you don't necessarily need to memorize this in order to be a great sight singer, but you need to just know how the distances change. So if you can see in the left here, it says that the note above C, that's how we're determining it. So the first note is C. If you go from C to C, the number of half steps is 0, okay? And that is called a unison, all right? Now, if you go from C to C sharp or D flat, which is 1 half step away, that is a minor second, okay? Now, if you go from C to D, so you're skipping that first half step, you're going a whole step, that's 2 half steps. That is a major second. Okay? If you go from C to E flat or C to D sharp, there are 3 half steps. So that is a minor third. Okay? If you go from C to E, that's 4 half steps. That is a major third. Okay? Now, there are 2 intervals that, there are 4 intervals that are qualified as perfect, okay? And they're perfect because way back when it has to do with overtones and the perfect overtones that divide equally, and I'm not going to get into that, all right? But there are 4 intervals that are considered perfect. The unison is considered perfect, so going from C to C, okay? So that's no half steps. Also the octave, going from lower C to upper C. That is considered perfect, a perfect octave. But then there are 2 more intervals that you're going to have to get to know, and that is the 4th and the 5th. Those are also perfect. So when we're talking about solfege, 4ths and 5ths, what we're talking about is going from do to fa. That is a perfect 4th. Okay? And then going from do to sol is a perfect 5th. As you can see from the chart, a perfect 4th has 5 half steps. A perfect 5th has 7 half steps between it. All right? So a unison, an octave, a 4th, and a 5th will rarely be anything but perfect. Okay? Then the other intervals can be major, minor, augmented, and diminished. And I'm not going to talk about augmented and diminished. You won't have to deal with that. We're just going to deal with major, minor, and perfect